Hey everybody, this is Perch. Back here with Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
It's been a long time, so I'm doing okay. But we're doing
Yeah,
great because we're with a legend here, John Romita Jr. How are
true.
you?
All right, legend. I'm in the top five. Let's just put it that way. Not a legend yet. I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
No, the joke is everybody says, "Well, legend means I'm old." I think if you do something long enough in any business, you can be legendary. But I've been working on 50. I'm closing in on the 50th year, and the amazing part of that is I started working on when I was 2. Oh Jesus!
Perfect. Well, we have a book to talk about, but I just want just to kick off. People who've been on this channel for a long time know I've got a complete X-Men collection, and I mentioned this before. You were always top artist for me in that book by a mile.
Thank you,
and all the different eras of it.
I appreciate that. That's considering the history of the artists and the writers on that title. That's a great compliment. Thank you very much. And the good thing, there's good things and bad things with that in all the titles I've worked on. One is it's horrible to try and follow some of the geniuses that have been before me, let alone in the business. But the good thing is that you have a high goal to reach for, and it makes you want to get better always, unless you're a moron and think you're great to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there's nobody in comics like that.
but I mean, like, while we're on the subject of that, I mean, the cover of Uncanny X-Men 210, isn't that one of the single most iconic covers of X-Men?
I've been told, and the reaction. Well, first of all, doing that at any convention, that is a preeminent cover. Yes, and the character is legendary, iconic. So you sometimes have to combine the character and the moment. And you get lucky, and occasionally this happens, and I'm very proud of it. I wish I could do it over now as a better artist than I was then.
Oh, I mean, the classic covers you did were amazing, and to your point, when I go to conventions and I see X-Men art or I see these splash images, as time has gone by, yours are the ones that you see the most on posters and other things. Lots of other great artists have done lots of covers, but some of these moments, you just have iconic images on these covers.
There's a way of looking at it. The way Romita Sr. looked at it is, don't fuck it up. And if you have the right character and the right moment, it will play itself out. He said he stepped into positions that he got lucky on. This is because the man had no ego. But I was very fortunate with those types of covers. Very, very lucky. I remember he worked on the first image of the first appearance of Punisher. I think he inked it over Gil Kane or something, and that cover art went for some ridiculous amount of money. And all he could say was, "I was in the right place at the right time." And I hate humility like that, but it's a prescient thing. It really is. If you're lucky, you get a good editor with a good idea, you get a good character, and you design and you get lucky. That's all I can say is luck, because I've had, like you said, to begin this, there are moments that I've been very fortunate to be a part of. And you do it long enough and you eventually get it right.
Well, I mean, you got amazing runs and worked for all companies, and want to definitely get into some of that. But before we do that, the thing of today, though, is that you're teamed back up with Mark Millar and you're doing Psychic Sam. And this is a Kickstarter book. It's this isn't your first Kickstarter, is it?
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it is. I don't recall having done it with that behind me before. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think I've done, because I did a Gray Area and Kick Ass, ironically, but I don't. Those were they're so long ago, so to speak, that I don't think I have done Kickstarter. It's the first time. I'm very happy to say that.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. It's off to a huge start already. I mean, it's way past the goal. Even as we're recording this, part of the reason why we do these things, especially with indie creators, people who do not have a name, you're trying to get some extra attention so they can just get to that goal. You're way past it, but it keeps going, and it looks like a great book. You're with a collaborator you've worked with before that definitely have some huge memories. You've worked with them in a few different places. Tell me about this book. Like, what's your pitch for this book?
My pitch is that if you had the ability, purposeful or by accident, to know of a crime or a horrible crime in advance of that crime, what would you do? And that's actually part of the trailer, is what would you do? It's genius. It's such a simple one, but it's genius. And then you add all of the layers to it that would be difficult. Would you, if you had a chance to stop Hitler before he did what he did, so to speak, stop a mass murderer, stop any kind of murderer, how would you handle it? And then it tortures you that you literally have to kill people.
Yeah.
What would it do to you? Would it eat you up inside? Would it cause you to lose your friends, family? Some people say I would embrace it. Yeah, maybe. But then after a certain amount of time, you might get a little bit tired of it. Then you find out who your friends are. Excuse the expression. I don't want to give away too much.
No,
but this
no
is
problem.
Miller. This is Miller at his best. What a genius idea. And I'm lucky to work with him at these kind of moments. And then I get a chance to work with a genius. Speaking of genius, is Klaus Janson and then Bill Crabtree. There's 3 artists on this book, and I'm very happy to say that. I definitely embrace that thought, because if I make a mistake, Klaus, he's a brilliant artist. He fixes it. If Klaus and I screw up, there's Bill Crabtree, who plays editor and ink artist, color artist. So I'm in such a great spot. But the best part about working with Mark, and there's a couple of writers that do this, is they throw the ball to me and let me run with it. I hate the sports analogy, but it's pretty much that. I can play with it as I see fit. And Mark says it, we know what you can do storytelling wise. And he says, so knock yourself out. But he gives me room to play, and that's the best part of it. And this is a film, and it's the first of 3. This is a film, stop action live film. I love it. I love the opportunity.
The art looks amazing. I mean, and just the story. I mean, it's early days, but I mean, seeing kind of some of these pieces come together. I mean, you're at the top of your game. It just looks incredible. It fits the median. It's just beautiful to look at. And
thank you. And again, once again, it's part of the storytelling that makes the artwork better.
Right.
I've always said that there's a million guys that are better draftsmen than me, but I think I'm as good as it comes with the storytelling, and that's just because I was fortunate in my formula, and I learned growing up. I told Frank Millar this a long, long time ago, that we came into the business roughly the same time, learned how to tell stories roughly the same way, and I think that made us both better storytellers and better artists at it. Frank more stylized than I am, but the ability to tell a good story and do it sequentially and do it with great mood and angles and design makes my art better, which I can always use an improvement in the artwork. I don't mind, but I'm very happy with the storytelling. Very happy with it.
With these sort of stories that Mark does, and the kind of stories you're doing here, now people who would be backing a Kickstarter like this, they might be backing it because they're big 2 fans, or they're fans of superhero comics. Like,
sure.
What kind of work that you've done in the past, or what kind of characters, like if someone was a big Punisher fan, would they really like Psychic Sam? Like, could you maybe go into some of that?
Yeah, and it's a street thing, as opposed to the spandex pants and the wild costumes kind of thing. This is street level. I love that about Punisher. There's Daredevil and Spider-Man and those types of characters where it's less about Galactus and it's more about street level stuff. And I can adapt to that because I always said this when I was younger and there was no such thing as the internet. I just dated myself. I would just look around my office. I would look around my apartment. I would look at my clothes. I would look at my car and use those as reference. And that can only happen when you work on a character that's street level, for lack of a better term. That's the best thing about working with Klaus. Klaus is the same way. He's gritty and he's got that kind of art style. We can also go moody. We can also go film noir. But you can't do that so much with a supernatural, a Doctor Strange, or like I said, a Galactus, Thor type of thing. I love that about this. Stan Lee once said, and I overheard this as he was talking with Romita Sr. If you have too much fantasy and not enough reality, you get bored. He says, believe it or not, you'll get bored with it. If you have too much of the opposite, too much reality, not enough fantasy, you have to balance it just right. Well, that's basically what we have here. And the fantasy end is the visions. You know, we can go crazy with the moment this guy is driving a tractor trailer, a long haul tractor trailer, and he has this moment, and he nearly kills himself and a bunch of other people, and he doesn't know what it is until he finds out that it was the truth only in advance. This is genius stuff by Mark, and again, street level stuff with just enough fantasy into it. And the majority of the ideas that I've come up with over the course of my run in comics, the best ones I come up with are the ones that balance that fantasy and reality without the silly costumes. Although I've never done a silly costume ever. No. Oh my God! I mean, Dazzler. Oh,
I was going to ask you about that. You know, like who did you screw over at Marvel that you got that gig?
I think Tom DeFalco said to me once, "You go to clubs, huh?" Yeah. He said.
Oh, no.
He said, Can you? This was in the late '70s. That shows how old I am. He says, "Can you grab one of those beautiful ladies out of your mind and draw her down? Let's turn her into a superhero." That was the conversation, and it got. You know, listen. It was called Disco Dazzler at first to get even more cringeworthy. But the good thing was I did have a chance to use some of the ladies from those places, and her name was Grace Jones. It was not the blonde. Ooh. The blonde California chick that it is now, because at the time Grace Jones was ever present. She's a stunning woman, tall, beautiful, had buzzed hair, and the outfit that the Dazzler wore was pretty much what Grace Jones would wear at night, and she would have a disco ball around her neck, dazzling. Excuse the expression.
That's awesome. I don't remember. You know, I mean, I've read X-Men all my time. I don't remember that. I don't think I've heard the story before. I
did. I have the character sheet. I don't have it with me at the moment, but I had the character sheet of Grace Jones, and I said out loud, "This is the lady my friends and I see, and not just her alone. This is the type of woman you see at a nightclub in Manhattan." And so it came out great. Grace Jones, we're going to cover all our bases with this fantastic character. She's all full of light. And then Neil Bogart, who was at the time the producer on the Wood Hopeful movie, I think he was either dating somebody or something like that. That said that when 10 came out, that Bo Derek was the greatest star on the planet. And you know how that played out. It was a good movie, but she shouldn't have been in this part. She looked like a blonde beachgoer. When a nightclub lady in the late '70s was not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick from California.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to go in that direction. And when I meet Grace Jones, I'm going to tell her, but she'll probably sue me.
She's on tour now. So
yeah. She's looking fantastic now. So this is the kind of thing. Speaking of fantasy and reality, it's the same thing with the character that my father and I designed for the Captain Marvel, the female Captain Marvel, back in the '80s, something '82. I wanted it to be based on Pam Grier, who I thought at the time was a '70s, very, very gorgeous and a very capable actress. And I said, "Dad, come on, we both love her, Pam Grier." And then we walk into a restaurant, and this statuesque waitress who was struggling to get a job on Broadway and in Hollywood took care of us and served us lunch. And my father said, without, for lack of a better term, "Screw Pam Grier, we have our Captain Marvel right here." And he started sketching the waitress without letting her know. And he started doing a sketch of her right there at lunch. So this is what I'm talking about. These are the type of characters from reality instead of fantasy. And unfortunately, the Dazzler, no, not unfortunately, fortunately, the Dazzler has become a quality character. Got to tip my hat to Chris Claremont. Turned her into she's a mutant and a hell of a good character. Didn't happen while I was working on it, but that's all right.
Should have been Grace Jones, though. To what you're saying, I like, and your art style really lends itself to taking something that is mundane. I don't know if a car wreck is mundane, but you draw in a way that is fantastical. It's a car. It's amazing explosions and collision and just pieces flying everywhere. It looks just completely like a huge budget action movie of what you're putting out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
you could put that right up against Galactus eating a planet, and it still has the same level of shock of what that image looks like.
Well, the Jack Kirby used to call it bluffing, artistic bluffing.
Yeah.
Take it upon himself that nobody's going to ever see a Galactus character eating a planet. Well, I'll take it upon myself that not many comic book readers will be in the cab of a semi that's lost control and drove across the Jersey Turnpike backwards and forwards and nearly kills himself. But I can bluff. So I got a lot of reference. First, I cursed Mark's soul that he put me on traffic in a tractor trailer. I said, "You Scotsman, you piece of garbage! You really." It took you days to do that page, but you get enough reference, and you take a chance that it's going to look relatively authentic, and the size and the scope of it works out. That's the type of thing that Mark asks for. It's a challenge every time. Even Klaus chuckled. He says, "Oh my God, how's this going to turn out?" And then Bill just nailed it. The scene is cool. I can't think of a better term. But if you don't do it right, it's going to look like dog shit. So we got lucky and we got it right.
It goes to an extreme, yeah, for sure. So, go ahead, Joe.
Now, he's not the only Mark that made you draw ridiculous things. You worked with Mark Grunwald on Contest of Champions.
This is true. Oh my God.
Right. So, and Mark's been gone. It'll be 39 years, I think.
God bless him. The history of that was because the president at the time boycotted the 1980 Olympics, and Jimmy Carter decided that since Russia invaded Afghanistan, and how much more ironic can you get with this? It was supposed to be the superhero or supervillain from every country in the Olympics. And we designed characters based on all of the countries and so on, colors of the flags, et cetera, et cetera. And while we were working on it, Russia invades Afghanistan, Jimmy Carter boycotts the Olympics, and it becomes Contest of Champions, the first mini-series, so to speak. And because of that series, I became known as somebody that can do group books upon group books to the nth degree in quantum. And the ink artist, I can't think of his name at the moment. I'm blanking on his name. Called me up and said,
"Was it Bob Layton on that?"
Yes,
one?
no, not Bob Layton. Bob McLeod.
Bob McLeod. Right,
Bob McLeod. He called me up and he cursed me just like I cursed Mark about the truck. He said, "Do you know how many fucking characters there are in this book? And I have to ink it." And he says, "Look at all these little characters." And I said, "That wasn't my fault. I'm sorry." But because of that, I was known as somebody that can do group books and multi-characters and multiple scenes. A big battle scene between the Avengers and the X-Men on Times Square on 11:59 on New Year's Eve. Romita can do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was a curse. And I have been known to do multi-character books and, Cecil B. DeMille scenes. But the history of it, you speak about iconic, that became the first series, miniseries.
Yeah, it was the first event that predates, Secret Wars, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was relatively, I may have signed more of those books than some issues of Spider-Man. That just is big, that's got a history to it that a lot of people love. Again, I repeat this, I wish I could do it over with more as I became more experienced. I was so young and so inexperienced, and yet it was palatable. McLeod nailed it and saved my ass on multiple scenes. But I'm very proud of that.
It's the importance of collaboration, right? And you're mentioning with this book here, you're working with Mark, you've got Klaus, you've got a full team around you, and it seems like there's really a drive these days to just how fast can you get the book out? Can we have the pencil or the inker? Just all be one person, just do it digital, forget the backgrounds. I mean, there's this rush to just get more content out.
Yeah.
Your work always looks like you have, but that you're putting your heart into it, but also you have a team around you. And that's it. You can really tell the difference. But do you think that's we're losing that a little bit in comics? This desire,
perhaps, but I don't. I think I can't say that it depends on the art team as much as there's got to be that combination. I've worked with Scott Hanna and Marcio Menez on Spider-Man, and there's a feeling of I feel safe because I know Scott's genius. Just like Klaus, I feel if I make a mistake, he'll call me and say, "By the way, did you mean to do this?" "Shit, yes." And he says, "Don't worry, I'll fix it. I'll take care of it." That's because I work with artists. I'm not just an inker. Excuse the expression. And that's the best thing about working with geniuses like Klaus and Scott and Bill Crabtree. It's a good feeling, but I can't rest on my laurels. I've got to be able to do it myself. The storytelling, again, I can't say it enough. The storytelling, it's film, it's cinematic, so to speak, and it allows the art to look that much better. If I took the cheaters way out in some scenes, you talk about backgrounds. First, I would cringe because I know on social media the next moment somebody would say, "You suck, Romita. You're the worst. You'll never be as good as your father." And I'll say, "Mom, don't talk to your son like that. You can't talk to your son like that."
I don't know what you're talking about, though. People are very calm on the internet. They don't complain about things like that.
You know what? If you want to go off on a tangent, social media is a bane, and it's also an advantage. If you mess up, you're going to hear it. Back in the day, I said before the internet. I started before the internet, and I would get letters in the letters pages of comics that they would have to edit because you can't put that. Romita sucks. You can't do that. Give him a break. He's just a young guy. But then people would criticize Jack Kirby, John Buscema, John Sr. So everybody's got their opinion. However, my father said you got to have a thick skin. If you don't have thick skin, this is the wrong job. It's like acting or even sports. You have to have a thick skin, and he's right. He was right, and I think I've got a thick skin. But if I go on social media for 2 minutes, and I'll see 10 or 12 people hating my guts, it tweaks you just a little bit. You can't help yourself.
I mean, it's hard to, as a creator, and I mean, I think there's lots of this perception of like, oh, we can complain. They're never going to care. They're doing the comic.
Yeah.
But it does get to you, right? I mean, and plus, if you know on some level some of these comments are right, like if they do spot an error that somehow got through, and then it's all the worst. They're calling you on something. I
have had moments where a constructive criticism helped. One kid, I don't know if he was a kid or a young guy, said that I draw Spider-Man's ankles too skinny. And I literally went back and looked at an issue, and he was right. I did it. Wow. I adjusted it. I had another guy said, "You draw blocky characters." And at the time, I had my style at the time I thought was looking more three-dimensional, too blocky. Okay, that I appreciate. But people say you suck out loud for no reason other than telling me this. You got to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
For sure. And since you brought up your dad, I was wondering, do you have a favorite like issue or maybe favorite issue of something he did, favorite character you worked on, or anything like that?
With him, the list is long. I think the Gwen Stacy stuff, because of the impact of that. Sure. Speaking of fans, he was given death threats because it was his idea to kill Gwen Stacy. But his stuff would stand on Spider-Man. The list is endless. And I'd say that Gwen Stacy stuff is just about it for me. But Spider-Man No More, that cover, considered the greatest Spider-Man cover of all time. And then he did Fantastic Four, and the stuff he did was why I tell a story the way I do. He took me to movies when I was a kid and said, "Watch this scene. Watch what Bogart does in this scene." He said, "It's going to start raining soon. Watch this. This is film noir." He explained to me. I was 10, I think. And I said, "What's film noir?" He says, "It's moody stuff, dark, moody stuff. It means dark film in French." And then we went into a conversation. My brother's off thinking about something else. He couldn't care less. And I'm watching it, and I'm listening to my father explain what's coming. And then it makes sense. And then the second feature was called, that was the, not on the waterfront. It was Casablanca. He explained to me that he created the Kingpin based on Sidney Greenstreet. This is fascinating to me. And then the next film, we saw a double feature that day, was The Big Country. With Charlton Heston and Gregory Peck. I know they're old movies, but we go down the block on a rainy day and we will go see old movies. And in that, this was a linchpin in storytelling to me. There's a fight scene between Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston, and they start beating the snot out of each other, which is it's a cliche in Hollywood back in the day. You punch, nobody gets hurt, and he says, "Watch this," and I forgot the name of the director. He said, "Watch this," and the camera starts to pull out, and suddenly the two of them are beating the snot out of each other, out in the middle of this gigantic field, and you heard the muffled sounds of the punches and everything, and the camera's moving. And instead of the close-ups of the punch and no effect, you could hear the thud and the grunts. And it's called The Big Country. And how appropriate is that for that scene? That's the conversations we had that allowed me to tell a story. And that's why I love going to see films with that old man. He just instructed me in so many different ways. And that was one of them.
I love that. I love. First of all, I remember that scene, and I love that. I love the way you're kind of visually. You're painting a picture for the people listening right now.
All right.
It is. I always thought, with movies, I've asked different artists, do you take your inspirations there? And you some do, some don't. Like Kari Andrews is a big, how he thinks about films and everything. But the techniques as you described it, the camera panning back, it's so translates to comics. And I'm picturing that scene, I'm picturing your comics, and you've used similar effects as well of just, moving the action back or doing things that really kind of nail in the size and scope.
There's one little anecdote, well, not anecdote, but a bit of instruction along these lines that I actually passed on to a young artist once. Was imagine Manhattan skyline and all the effects of the sun going up or coming or going down. And you close in on a building as there's voiceovers, and you close in on the building, and then you close in on a window, and you close in on the window to the point you see who's inside the room. And then you go inside the room and there's a fight going on, or there's a murder scene going on, and it's over, and the character looks, and then you pan back out the exact same way. Over the course of 2 pages, you know where you are, you know the room you're in, you see the two characters and the action. And when he told me, he says, I don't remember if it was a scene in a movie or he just described it. The ultimate in storytelling would be this, kid. And he described it to me. And then I described it to somebody else about this in the same manner. That is better than the prototypical pinup shot of somebody punching somebody.
Oh, sure.
And it's a splash page. Wow. Which one would you do? And I take the panning out and panning in. Can't help it. I'm a little bit spoiled that way.
I know. I love the sequential, the using the sequential art to this deeper kind of cinematic look and feel. I definitely you've done that in your comics. Again, so many iconic runs. I was looking at some of your covers here because I'm remembering some of the X-Men titles you've done. But I mean, your stuff on Daredevil, you've done all over all these different books and these scenes, and to the point that you do covers. You're doing covers for Daredevil recently. Maybe still are actually, but you're doing
still doing it. I love it. Love doing it because they're easy pinup shots. I love it.
Well, yeah, great for selling art too. Are you doing this stuff all original, or are you doing digital at this point?
No, I'm old school, and I'm pencil, paper, and eraser, and especially that fucking eraser. Thank God for erasers.
So many artists, they get popular and they do the sheer body of work that you've done, these very iconic shots. And then they migrate just to covers. And you're one of the guys who just stuck with the interiors. And I know so many people are appreciative of that because there's a lot of these great artists. You don't get to enjoy the sequential storytelling anymore. They're just the pinups. And you give us both.
I think I'm just stuck in old habits and they die hard. I think if I wasn't doing sequential work, I would feel uncomfortable because I think that's stronger than my draftsmanship. And in all honesty, I'm a better storyteller than I am an artist. But it makes me a better artist because it's storytelling. Yeah. My father told me that the point, and I've been told this, when somebody says, I really love the book you're working on, and they don't say, I really love your art, it means they're paying attention to the story as a whole. That's what he's hoping for. Now, I've gotten a great story, but your work sucks. And, I've gotten that too. But then, you take it with a grain of salt. Sure. You'll love this. Speaking of that, you'll love this story. I'm in Italy.
Oh, yeah. This is awesome, by the way.
And I get told by a kid, he comes with this broken English, and I speak a little bit of Italian, so we kind of combined it. And he looks at me, and he's got a big smile on his face, probably 15, 18 years old, couldn't tell. He says, I think you're the best Spider-Man artist ever. And he shook my hand, and he's walking away, and he says, next to Todd McFarlane, and he walks away. And he said it with a smirk and a smile, and I could not. I called McFarlane the next day and I cracked him up. He says, I love that. He says, that's bullshit. He says, but I love that story.
That's funny. Another character, you're talking about fantasy and stuff like that. One of my personal favorite runs of yours was your Thor run with Dan Jurgens. You were on that a couple of years.
That's
and you took some big swings. There were some big status quo shakeups. You had the Jake Olsen as, sort of the new, earthly mortal body of Thor and all that. And how was it working on that? How was the reception sort of at the time? How was it sort of aged for you? I'd love to hear more about that.
In a conversation with Dan, we both just fan geeked over Jack Kirby's work. And it was the same kind of conversation with Reggie Hudlin and the Black Panther. And any work and a title that I worked on that Jack Kirby beautified back in the day, that power in that Thor run, and even Klaus, I think Klaus probably just nodded and said, "Yeah, I think it's a great idea." So I had reference of Kirby's stuff all over, and Kirby's Thor stuff all over my drafting table. That character calls for that kind of power and that kind of size, and Dan allowed those pinup shots, those double spreads, those wraparounds. I mean, this is what comics was supposed to be like. We didn't sacrifice storytelling. We just used a lot of big imagery and this gigantic. I mean, the Mangog. How much more Kirby can you get than Mangog? I love that fight. I love that battle, and it's the coolest character. Same thing with the Eternals. Neil Gaiman said the same thing. I said, Neil, do you mind if I use Kirby's reference, Kirby's work as excitement? He says, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, go right ahead. He says, just don't steal too much. And the Eternals stuff was the same size and scope as the Thor stuff. You can't get any better than that. Now, these days, I wonder if it was all image and all pinup, double spreads, 4 or 5 double spreads throughout the image, throughout the issue. What would it be like in the reaction on social media? No story, just a lot of pinups. Romita's cheating.
Yeah,
I wonder. But at that time, with Klaus and Dan, that just was such a blast. I can't think of anything else except in a sports analogy. You go to you play baseball and you hit 4 home runs in a game because the pitcher sucks. I don't know. You enjoy every moment of it, even though it's easy. It's the same thing with anything of that size with Kirby. And the writer will say to me, "Knock yourself out." I work with John Byrne. He did the same thing on Iron Man. He says, "You know what you can do. I know what you can do." He said, "Here's the plot." And he gave me maybe two typed out pages for 22 pages of artwork. He says, "Here, long as Tony Stark starts here, Iron Man ends up here." He said, "Knock yourself out. Just give me this, this, and this."
All right. Now we have the secret for how Byrne did all the books.
But he was so deferential. He even gave me top billing on that title briefly.
Yeah,
that was one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten from a writer, from a talent, was that, and I got top billing over him. He gave himself second billing. That's because John was an artist, and I work well with artists that become writers. Look at Frank, and my best work possibly was working with Frank Millar on Man Without Fear, of all time. And the character Daredevil is super special to me, and that run, that series with Frank was extra special. And then working with a genius like Innocenti, same thing. That character plays itself out. Fantastic. Again, street level character. We talked about it earlier.
No, and you do mix them well. And I think with Psychic Sam, you do have the supernatural or the psychic element. You have the gritty action. You're bringing them together. Similar with Kick-Ass. I mean, definitely a grounded type story, but they're doing bigger than life things. Daredevil, Spider-Man. Even the X-Men, a lot of the early issues, it was in that Mutants Underground, hanging out.
Yes.
Massacre, very gritty.
Yes. And the good thing is that Mark loves the street level stuff with a little bit of fantasy involved in it. And it's Los Angeles is the playground. And you add what you've seen or what you've experienced We've all been to Los Angeles. We've all seen imagery in films. I take reference on the streets, the back alleys, and the characters. And some, for instance, there's a character that this Big Poppy.
Yeah.
We had to take Big Poppy out because that's a Boston Red Sox player. So we had to just call it Poppy. But that's the type of character that is real. And I did reference literally. I took photo reference from the Latino street gangs, and used some of those references. The tattoos, the teardrop tattoos on the cheeks mean certain things. On the hands, they mean certain things. This is street level genius stuff by Mark Millar, who's from fucking Scotland. How does he know about Los Angeles?
Right. Well, as a New Yorker, did you feel a little betrayed that Mark's making you spend this much time mentally in LA? Because that doesn't seem right.
No, I didn't mind it at all, because I think LA and New York are pretty much the same thing. It's one big bowl of soup.
Great words, yeah.
And we did kick ass in New York City and Queens Village, where I grew up. That's fine by me. I have no problem with it, and he let me play with it. But I had to do reference on it more so than I had to do the LA Zoo. I had to get reference on the LA Zoo, and reference on all the weapons, and reference on what a guy that doesn't know anything about weapons. What kind of weapon would he carry around? A Desert Eagle. It's the greatest pistol, greatest handgun on the planet. This is the kind of fun I had. And when my wife would be passing by as I'm working on a character, how do you kill characters different ways? This is sick. I go to bed and I talk, Kath, I got to figure out a way to kill this guy that I haven't done before. I blew this guy's brains out. I slashed this guy across the belly. She says, "Have you tried this?" And the two of us go to sleep talking about slaughtering people. This is sick.
That's comics for you.
Oh, yeah. Since you're also talking about this, like, how do you, in your mind, like when you're planning these things out, because you're in LA, everyone's driving, of course, so there's going to be cars here. How do you, in your mind, figure out, oh, well, maybe this car's a used car. This car's going to be more recent. This person's driving around with like a plastic bag over the window because it's broken. Like, how do you
Good point.
How much time do you spend on that?
That's a great point. And I cheat a little bit in it, so much as that I will give you, for instance, if it's Manhattan, I'll give a couple of landmarks, and the rest will be generic buildings. Because if you go landmarks, if that's a try to draw Manhattan the correct way, you'll go out of your effing mind.
Yeah.
It's the same with Los Angeles. Same with cars. Same with clothes. You have to lend a certain amount of accuracy and reality to it. And the cars will be invariably a mixture of old school 68s and brand new Rolls Royces. Anything that looks authentic, and then you throw in generic cars because you can't go out of your mind. Now, speaking of automobiles, that I cursed Mark Millar's soul was. He had to draw the tractor trailer upside down, sliding into a mountainside. Has anybody tried to draw the underside of an 18-wheeler? That's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sent him, as I was drawing it and filling in the details, I sent him an email and said, I will kill you in your sleep if you ever do this to me again.
Well, in these pages, and even the pages that people are seeing hopefully on the screen, and just the preview pages for the Kickstarter and everything else, I get you're seeing these very rich backgrounds. You got a character kicking down a door. You're showing every splinter fly out. You got the hinges there. You've got the door. I mean, it's just the level of just sheer detail on this stuff.
Thank you.
How long is a page for you?
It varies. It varies. The kicking down is the easy part, but the splintering can be repetitive and difficult. However, if you do something long enough, for as long as I've done it, you can find a formula to those things. The only thing I have that references that is with glass breaking, or Spider-Man getting thrown through a glass window. It's the same with Sam busting down the door and then tackling a guy through getting tackled through the door. You can't cheat. Right. Because if you do, then it's going to be noticed by that same kid on social media that hates my guts. Mm-hmm. He won't acknowledge it the way you did, but he'll say if I cheat on the backgrounds with the splinters. But it gives it, if that panel is done the right way, it lends itself to such authenticity and such drama in it that you feel really good about it when it's done. For instance, I throw a lot of smoke. I cover up things with a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
When you get busted through the door of an old building, it's got to be smoke. So I just wisps of smoke and covers up a lot of stuff. I cheat a little bit. I, as you said, it has to show the detail, but you can't do it on every single panel. You go out of your mind.
Yeah.
But enough of it, if you do enough of it, then it'll. I'll give you an example. The storytelling bit that Romita Sr. would tell me was, you have to establish every couple of pages. If you don't, you get lost. You don't know where you are. But if you establish a great scene, like we talked about with The Big Country, you establish, or that scene in Manhattan, then the next page you can do a pinup.
Yeah.
Because it's either the page before or the page after. You know it's going to be. Oh, I know where we are. That's right. Oh, he's falling through that same door. Same thing with Sam. He busted open that door. And what you have to do is remember where the shards were at certain sizes and so on. Because remember, there's a scene where he picks up a shard of wood,
Right.
and he stabs Poppy. Because I didn't want to have him grab a knife or grab a gun. It's been done to death in this issue. All right, so something different grabs a shard of wood and saves his own life because that guy was going to break his neck.
Yeah.
You have to give a little bit of authenticity, maybe not a little bit, but enough that it sells itself.
It's back to storytelling again. You're setting up the ultimate murder that you talked about, at bedtime, with a piece from the detailed picture. It all flows together. But speaking of absolute beatings, well, two things. First, you finished this run on Spider-Man recently, and I don't know if you knew this, but people enjoyed your drawings of Spider-Man just getting the ever-loving shit beat out of him so much that Marvel started to promote it. I don't know if you knew this in the solicitations as nobody draws Peter getting beaten like Romita, and he's going to get beaten really bad in this issue. That's
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's the Tombstone fight scene. I think when I was told it's going to be the fight scene of all fight scenes, it sounded, I've heard that before, but then I had to live up to that. And I take it from some films. I think if you've seen the Equalizer, the first one with Denzel Washington, the Russian animal that beats that Boston thug to death.
Yeah.
That director, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Saquon, I forgot. Anyway, he does such a great job, and the choreography by the director of action or whatever, the second director, is so authentic. But the scenes of the beatings, it's so powerful that I'm thinking to myself, that's what I want to do in this scene with Tombstone. Now, Tombstone isn't made out of rock; he's a human being. Right. So Spider-Man can beat the snot out of this guy and get beaten to death as well. And then there's a scene in the subway, and they have to be careful with the trains going by. Again, got to do trains, a subway car in Manhattan with every rock and every shard of, oh God, only I get that shit. I swear to God. But that fight scene is one of the ones that I'm most proud of. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I told Zeb Wells, I said, this is going to be a blast. Just pay attention. I'm going to try this, this, and this. And I stuffed in extra panels. I didn't take out panels. I didn't try to do too many pinups. And the old choreography that I was taught as a kid, he said, Romita Sr., he said, imagine you're boxing. You can't just throw a punch with a right hand every time, and it can't be a glamour photo with a camera nearby. You have to come this way, and your legs got to be in the right position. Bing, 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 bing. And it's choreography. It's dance choreography. It's balletic. And I've applied that to fight scenes, even on a scale, as we mentioned before, of a Galactus or Mangog or Thor. You have to lend that bit of authenticity to it, because if you don't, just because they're supervillains or superheroes or intergalactic creatures, you can't not show a little bit of realism in the fight. What would be the coolest thing in the world is Thor punching in Mangog. That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, God, in that beating, Spider-Man's like jaws hanging off his face. He just running him through the winger.
And they told me to be accurate. They said, listen, we can't show as much blood as you want, Romita. You're a sick fuck, but we don't mind It's being as accurate with the beatings as possible. And he's got to be swollen up.
They let you go pretty far. And it was the second biggest beating you've delivered in comics, because the first one, I think, is, I believe you introduced Paul to Spider-Man. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That was a beating to the comic fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you realize how much money that both you and Marvel could make if you could just take that Tombstone fight scene, but it's Paul, and then it's just destroyed?
That's true. Hey, listen, I remember the conversation I had with the Punisher editors. Chuck Dix and I had decided that the Punisher should never look like Superman with that perfect face.
Right.
Can't. He's been in a million fights before we worked on the character. So I said to Chuck, hey, buddy, he gets hit enough. I want to show it. And he says, yeah, great. So we told the editor, and the editor either spoke to the editor-in-chief, I forgot who it was at the time, said, well, you have to make him look like himself. I said, he looks like Superman to begin with. That's what he looked like when he was first created. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. If he gets hit, we got to show a broken nose. All right. How about a bulbous eyebrow like a boxer? Yeah, go ahead. So by the time I was done, it didn't look like the Punisher anymore, but it looked like the Punisher if he had gotten the shit knocked out of him by Superman, let's say.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of that, because then it became the way the character looks.
Yeah.
The Punisher no longer has a straight nose. He's got a busted nose, and he's got the heavy eyebrows. And to end this long, boring story, this anecdote, John Buscema had to do the Punisher. I forgot which issue he was doing. And he calls me up and he says, I just want you to know, I need reference on you. I needed reference on the Punisher that you did, which I think is the really coolest. This is John Buscema talking to me like a fan geek. He says, I took it from your version. He said, John, give me a break. I stole that from Conan. I said, that's what the Punisher looks like, Conan. Long hair, just a shorter hair, but he's beat up. He laughed. He says, you're full of shit, Romita, but just like your father. But I had to use your version, which I think your version of the Punisher was the coolest one, because he had been beaten up so bad. And it became the way the character looks. I was very proud of that.
That's a big compliment from him.
But before all of that, you worked on one of the most famous fights in Marvels in the late 70s, where Tony Stark got his liver beaten up. Iron Man 128.
There you go.
So how did you know at the time, because you were really young when you were working on this issue, and this is something that has been an essential part of the character since then. Did you have any ideas you guys were doing a story like this that it would be this impactful on Tony?
No, but I do recall Bob and Michelini both saying, this is kind of important. We're going to try something we haven't done before. Now they are the mainstays in that run, that because of it. And I laugh. I said, well, I wouldn't know anything about this type of lifestyle, drinking too much. I said, just like I wouldn't know what the Punisher looks like if he gets the shit knocked out of him in a bar room. I would never know these things. I've never been involved in. So Bob and I used to laugh and say, well, we've tipped a couple in our lives. But no, the answer was I didn't know it was going to be to the extent that it was. And, the drugs were approached. Which DC character had a drug problem? I forgot.
So you had Speedy. Yeah.
Speed, I think, okay. Ironically, the name Speedy,
but
when comics approaches these kind of important moments, whether it's physical abuse of a woman by so-and-so, any kind of abuse, anything political without the politics in it, something that's realistic. I think that it should have happened a long time before, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. And the interesting thing is that no writer really ever wanted to put their politics into it, because then you'll piss off half your audience.
Right.
And you have to be careful. But when you approach an important thing like alcoholism or drug abuse, I think it's genius, especially when it's handled in such a well done way as Michelini did and Layton. I'm very proud of that. Definitely very proud of that.
I mean, if you go back, this is such a cliche question. I ask a lot of artists there, but in this case, I'm really struggling to think of so the question is, which character have you wanted to do, or that you haven't done yet? But which character haven't you done yet at this
All right.
point?
If I had to choose, I've vacillated between a couple of characters.
Okay.
And I settled on the Silver Surfer. That if I had to choose a character that I wanted to do that I haven't done in a series, it would be the Silver Surfer. I had said it would be Doctor Strange sometimes, because I love that it's a complete opposite of me doing the street level stuff, and yet Doctor Strange is from New York City again. So, but that even when I did Thor, we didn't seem to do enough of the fantastical stuff. It was street level stuff. When I did Superman, they wanted to make Superman more realistic, as more human like. Wait a minute, this is the most powerful creature in the universe, and would put him in a bar. He's having a meal with somebody. All right.
Many people had that thought. Yes.
But again, I had this great premise for the Surfer, and it would have played well with Doctor Strange too, and it played well with Superman. But I didn't get a chance to do it because they wanted me to work with Jeff Johns, which is not a problem. That type of character. But I think Silver Surfer, quite possibly, is one of the greatest throw-in characters in comics history. Stan Lee says to Jack Kirby, I want to do God, capital G. Mm-hmm. And Jack Kirby comes up with Galactus, capital G. And instead of just taking it good enough there, he throws in the Silver Surfer, who's Angel Gabriel.
The Herald, yeah.
Yeah, the Herald. Just genius. It's a surfboard, but this is one of the most powerful characters in the universe as well. And I would love to do that. I would do a run on that. He appeared in the Fantastic Four Godzilla thing. Not enough, as far as I'm concerned. I wish the Silver Surfer was more present in that. But I think if I had to choose, that's the guy, my boy.
Do you ever get? I mean, is there a world in comics today? I mean, we've talked to people before, and they were able to call their shots from time to time when they really want to do a character, and they finally get to earn it. But today, is that possible? Like, could you call up Marvel and say, "Hey, I'm doing a 5-issue series. You got help make it happen"?
I could, as long as I got done what they want me to do.
Okay.
I don't think Spider-Man could be sacrificed, and yet because of the brilliance of the other artist, Pepe Ross, it wouldn't be a problem. But I don't know. I've never been of that mind that I could stomp my feet and act like a bitch. I couldn't do that. I want. I apologize to all the bitches out there, but I couldn't do that. However, I would like to know that at some point before I finish my deadline work, I could do another run of Daredevil and possibly with Frank, or a Silver Surfer with somebody. And don't know which writer, but I'll drag somebody. I would love to try it. Yes.
I would think, there was this mentality, and I've heard a couple editors say this, that you never give an artist the characters they love, because they won't do it well. But I mean, and I've always thought, what an odd statement. But what's your take on that?
I never thought of it. I never thought of that phrase until you said it. However, if you get too much in love with the character and the idea that you come up with, you might possibly fumble the ball at the goal line.
Yeah.
So I do see the safety in that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so back to kind of the comic at hand here. We've got this, we've got Psychic Sam. It's volume 1 of 3. Mm-hmm. Is this a case where you've got kind of each volume concludes the story, or is it just one big story? It's cut into 3 parts, or what are people?
It is an ending to the first, but it leads into the second, and so on to the third. Now, if it's the greatest thing that's ever been put into publication, there could be more. Who knows?
Sure.
But I think Mark probably would be loath to do another series unless they throw gold bars at his house. I don't know. I have to see. But if it gets turned into a film and is done as well as I hope it would be done, right then and there, I would see more. I wish I had continued to do more Kick-Ass instead of the amount that I did. I forgot how many runs I did with Hit Girl combined. But even Mark gave me an out by saying, listen, you do too much of the same stuff and you run out of things to do. I said, but you come up with the stuff. He says, yeah, but then you have to draw it and you have to do it differently. So he tried to make me feel better about the fact that I wasn't doing it anymore. I think there's something to that. However, I would love to know that if I came up with the premise that I have on Silver Surfer, and it passed it passed all the editors who editorially look at the story, and it passed the art director, whomever that is at the time. I know what I want to do on it, and I think it would pass muster.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I think I still want to propose that premise to somebody. I think it works sometimes and it doesn't work other times, but there is something to that. If you fall in love with yourself, for instance, you're
Yeah.
never going to get any better looking. You're going to get uglier as you get older.
Yeah, no, that's true. I like that. Speaking of that, as runs have aged, again, you've done all these things, and I remember picking up the Nascenti Romita Daredevil issues, and just, I mean, every issue of that was great. You're doing something street level. You're fighting Ultron, and just such visual kind of power. And for anybody who's, earlier when we were talking about kind of cinematic and panning back shots and putting that, I mean, that Daredevil run you did, you just had a lot of moments like that.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get that leeway, and lent it to the same way. Gave it to me and said, "We know what you can do. Knock yourself out." Without for about the same words, she felt that she didn't have to rely only on her plotting and her choreography. Her idea would be a small idea, and then we would play with it, and it worked out. I wish I could work with her again on Daredevil. That was such a great run. I was so proud of that. Mephisto, I got to tell you a little anecdote to make you listen. Anybody has any problem with insomnia, just listen to this story. When I was in college, I wrote a one-act play called Beer with God.
Okay.
I every time I go to my buddy's bars, there was always somebody sad sack sitting at the end of the bar. Looks like he could, he's sad. So I said, I come up with a premise. I wrote a quick one-act play about a guy goes into the bar in anticipation of killing himself because he's so miserable in his life, and his wife left him, and he's a piece of garbage, and God comes wandering in, sits down next to him and talks him out of it without knowing who it is. So I told Anne, I have an idea for a plot, and she said, well, I told her about Beer with God. She said, wait a minute, we're working on Daredevil with Mephisto as the bad guy. How about Beer with the Devil? I said, that's brilliant, Anne, I love it. And that's where that came from.
Oh, wow.
And she allowed me to throw in that kind of addition.
That's cool.
A toast to her for her brilliant writing, but also for allowing me to play with it as I saw fit. And I'll never forget the scene when Mephisto kisses Daredevil, Matt Murdock. The thing, he thinks it's a woman.
Yeah.
And it's Mephisto. This is genius. That's what Nascenti did.
Yeah.
And didn't get enough credit. But yeah, I would love to go back one more time around on Daredevil. I would love that.
Right. I mean, so speaking of going back, is there any piece of the runs you've done where you wish you could go back and redo it or
oh God, yes.
What's something you'd love to just do again?
Maybe not the storytelling per se, but there's scenes I'd see, especially going to conventions and have books thrown in front of me. Speaking of Daredevil, was that scene where he's running across the rooftops with a stick, and Matt Murdock's ankle is just busted, awful. How did the editors let that go through? It was terrible. There's little moments like that. A missing foot, a missing leg, two lines that touch each other that are supposed to be in a distance or up close, and the two lines touch each other and it ruins the depth of the scene. Yes, all the time. So in the advice of Romita Sr, he said, do not let anything go into a FedEx box or a UPS box until you look at it the next morning.
Smart.
And he was right on 100%. And I caught most of my mistakes. And also, I'd say having brilliant artists as inkers, Al Williamson, I would call one of the greatest artists I've ever worked with as an ink artist. Romita Sr, Klaus and Scott, come on, these guys are geniuses, and they will catch. I said, don't call me up if you see me fucking up, fix it, or call me and I'll redo it. But yes, I cringe when I see some of the things I make mistakes on. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's an amazing career, and I mean, I'm again, I've said it earlier, but I'm just so thankful you're still doing books. I love some of these artists. You probably see on the back of a while ago stuff from Art Adams back here. I've got some of the
man,
other artists.
God,
Love
love
those
his stuff.
guys, but there's no interiors anymore, you know. And
Yeah.
with your stuff, I get to pick up a comic and read it, and then see the panel by panel, and it is the
I
story.
think that's the difference between 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and today. I think readers want more. They want story. They don't need pinups.
Yeah.
However, you do have to throw in a smattering of those.
Sure.
I honestly would like to be able to control that balance, and I've done that. I've done 9-panel pages in anticipation of a big double-page spread. Joe Kelly and I have to bounce back and forth. I had to do that with the Godzilla and AFF book. That I had to make sure I could get the right break from page turning. And the most important thing in a page turn is you cannot have a little panel in a page turn. It's got to be a big splash, even if it's partial of that page. But I think more story is what readers want, and I don't mind it. I think that's part of it. And I remember an artist telling me once when we did the story without dialogue. Silence. I forgot what it was called. That month where all books were done without dialogue and no captions. Enough said.
Yeah.
An artist called me up and he says, "I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't know how you do that. What? How do I?" And he sounded almost infantile, not like a baby, in as much as I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this? How do you do that? I said, "Make it a stop action film." And he laughed by the end of the conversation, but that to me takes precedent over good art. However, you can't minimize the art. You have to do the job.
Well, they go hand.
But I would give anything to do another Enough Said run, and I would do anything. Matter of fact, I might suggest it to somebody because I love that thought. This is what film is. It's sequential storytelling. It's what people want. They want to see a film. Listen, there's no pinups in movies, but there's action sequences.
Sure. Well, I mean, you completely have, whether it's the more modern comic movies, you have the pause on the particular jump stance, the hero stance.
Sure.
You have action movies, you have stuff with Clint Eastwood back in the day, and they just hover the shot for one moment. I mean, that was your splash page right there.
There it is, exactly right. And just like we talked about the big country, that scene with the fights, you do the fight scenes properly, and those are your splashes. But you have to do the minuscule panels that lead up to it. I love Listen, I used to curse at the thought of doing a 9-panel page. Now I think it's a tool, absolutely a tool in your tool chest. You build up to a close-up, and you build up the scene with 9 panels, almost a close-up, and then building to this gigantic. I love that page turn. That's important to me, and I think that's what is going on with comics. I don't like to call them comics anymore because they're graphic novels, each and every one of them. That the writers give you the chance to do this, and the readers want more content.
Sure.
So be it.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of one of the lessons people struggle with the U.S. comics, manga, and all the rest. But one thing about manga I see a lot of people miss is that if you read those stories, there's fewer splash pages actually in many of those. There's a lot more sequential art, a lot more storytelling, and that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that kind of visual piece.
Well, that's where Psychic Sam comes in.
Yeah,
there's that brilliance that Mark throws in is that fantasy element. But it's street level, and then you have to throw in the busting of the door down. But you can't do it the way it's been done before. Why does he have a baseball bat in his hands? Because I don't own a gun. I own a lot of baseball bats. If you're going to break into my house,
right?
My wife said, "I won't let you have a gun." I said, "Kath, what do I do?" She says, "Put all your softball bats under the bed. Somebody breaks into the room, you break their necks." So. Again, we have a violent conversation because of the business I'm in. But
it's
that's the kind of thing that Sam would do instead of just having weapons. He has to walk down the street with the bat in his overcoat.
Yeah.
And then the scene where he takes out Poppy is, the way I would do it is a gouge to the gut, and then you get the uppercut. This is what I see myself if I'm in a barroom brawl and I have a bat. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I've never been in a barroom brawl. Don't pay any attention to this guy behind the curtain.
So I mean, and first of all, thank you very much. You've given us an hour. The conversation has just flown by. It's insane.
I do tend to talk too much. I apologize.
It's brilliant. I love talking.
And my wife is in the room doing this. Yes, you talk too much.
No. It's I mean, it's such a nice conversation about comics and the art, the storytelling, and really the collaboration. I mean, you've mentioned it a bunch of times. You're working with Mark on this. You've talked about Klaus. I have a big original piece of Batman over there by him that I treasure.
Fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
You get that magic team working together, and it certainly looks like what you've assembled here for Psychic.
Thank you. And I agree that having Klaus and Crabtree, and having Mark, who's a kind of an artist in and of himself. He's a bullshit artist, but he's kind of an artist. If you're handed the football on the 1 yard line and you're going for a touchdown, just don't drop the ball. And that's what Mark gave me. He handed me off with a power. All of these cliches about sports. He handed me the football with a great offensive line, and I'm going to score a touchdown as long as I don't fumble.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I'd say I wish you success, but it is successful now. So now it's just a matter of how successful can we make it, and hopefully very successful. So hopefully people get there. You see that you've been seeing the link in this video, see in the description. Go there, support it. By all means, get this thing high so we can get more of them. We can torture you with more than 3 volumes. I think we're going to talk to Mark here soon as well, and I'll try again for I think the 3rd time now to get him to admit that he wrote Trouble, which he still won't do. But
all right, tell him tell him that I say hello. The Sicilian says hello. He calls me the Sicilian. I call him the Shanty Scotsman. So say hello for me.
That's a perfect thing. Joe, thank you very much, Reyes. John, an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure, guys. You guys just wonderful. Let me know if you want to talk again. We'll do more when the next issue comes out. Let's do it again.
Let's do it for everyone.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
You got it. Thanks, boys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Ciao.